I think probably many people out there won't know what you mean by that. And it doesn't have to be a long explanation. And I have a few other thoughts past that, but curious to define that a little bit.
I think, again, we'll start with what do you want to know, right? Like, and how do you want to derive what you want to know from people? So there's a couple signals in the world that we're talking about. Let's talk about the basic information function of a waterfall enrichment. And this is the classic things that you think about. What's their phone number? What's their email address? Where are they located? What's their LinkedIn profile? These sorts of things, getting them, fetching that in an automated way. You can pretty much enrich the whole world to some degree. Like I said, 70% accuracy. The emails don't always work. The phone numbers aren't always valid still. But that's kind of the first information layer. The second layer that I would think about is intent driving signals, right? What are they in the market for? Who are they as a person? Where are they active? What indicators are they showing to the world that they might be interested in a company or product services? There's many other layers to that, by the way, and some people have to do waterfall enrichments, meaning multiple enrichments just to get the information. Because like I said, one service 70% over here in emails, other services 70% on phone calls. So you kind of have to push them all together. So I think the world as a complex unit, we have a lot of room for improvement on a singular source of enrichment from an information purpose. And then we need to work to fully automate the processes of when do we enrich? Because each one of those enrichments costs money, right? Or costs time or costs evaluation tactic at a minimum. So you utilize the second layer before you even enrich the first layer. Who are the ones we're interested in? Who is our addressable market? Who is our reachable market? Who are the ones active in market today for whatever we're selling? So if you can get to the point of enriching from bottoms up, you spend the least amount of money. If you're enriching from the information point down, then you're spending the most amount of money because you're spending money to bring in all of the informative emails, phone numbers, this sort of thing without any idea that they're even in market. So it's a constant tug between which, many inbound companies start with the signal first. Many outbound companies start with the information first because that's the flow of where you're trying to meet in the middle. So this is what I'm talking about in the waterfall enrichment side of things.
That's awesome. That's great. Something I think we all inherently know is very important, but just gets overlooked. And it caught my eye or my ear when you mentioned it, because it's something we're working on currently with our new CRM. We're using ClickUp for our new CRM, and we're doing all this enrichment. And even though we had a nice long conversation about Salesforce, it just ended up not working out after our lunch conversation, even though I did want Salesforce for a bit, but ClickUp has been great. But we're working on that now. So yeah, the waterfall enrichments have been very important to my day-to-day. So caught my ear there. Bringing it back into the AI world, which we haven't deviated very far from it, but have you deployed any specific AI tools in your day-to-day that have actually moved the needle, help pipeline velocity, help win rates? And as an extension, just to kind of broaden the question a bit, if you had a chief AI officer for your revenue organization, which you even might, or someone who acts in that role, what would be their first priority? So maybe something that's been a win for you in the past and one that you would like to be a win in the future. Anywhere you want to take that question.
Yeah, sure. I'll start with the AI officer. Their first role is to decide what not to automate. Again, we are not evaluating AI. Not the opening line of let's evaluate AI is actually an incorrect line. What problem are you evaluating? What problem do you want to solve? What process do you want to be more automated? Where do you want a coworker, not a co-pilot? Where can agents actually do something to affect your workload where you can still have control and the humanity as we led to in the beginning? So I think the things that I've focused on, and without talking too specifically about tools until it comes to my own, is automating the top of funnel enrichment process, as we've already talked about, automating the parts of the sales motion. Okay, so when should I be following up? How long is too long? What are some of the contextual reasons of the company? Did something happen, right? Is your champion still in place? Did the company just raise money that you're talking to? Understanding where you can have real impact on pipeline velocity by signals within the account, engaging stakeholders, making sure that you still have good health in the account from a stakeholder perspective. This is where I'm focused on understanding more how AI solutions can help me here, is like evaluating the process from the bird's eye view, right? Where do I spend my time? How do I see accounts at risk? How do I work diligently with my sales team to suggest then how we should act, not actually what we should do to act through AI. So I think the tools that I'm looking for specifically are, how do we automate the human's interaction with the sales process? When do we engage the human? How do we action or pull action from a human within the sales process itself? Because I think this is where we still need to be, as sales leaders, involved in the process, because we're dealing with humans. Computers aren't navigating against each other yet. So with that, there is a level of identification that we need to have from the human standpoint, right? We need to understand, what are the humanity issues at play here? Do we not have the right stakeholders? And this still, to my knowledge, is not something that AI is doing really in a sophisticated way. So again, I think it's the shift from co-pilots to co-workers, where they recommend and where they do, separating those two things out to two different platforms. So specific tools, I mean, all the big ones are still out there, right? Like ZoomInfo is doing a great job with some of their co-piloting work, and they're still, in my opinion, the best enrichment service out there. Our tools specifically for how to re-engage with your champions and understanding how you can utilize relationships within the sales process in a really articulate and efficient way. And then I think things like Gong, obviously some of the best out there for evaluating what you have in your pipeline and nudging you when to move. Some of the big boys are still pretty good. Like they've been able to hang in with what they're doing. And then I think you supplement those with niche products that really guide you to specific indicators within your industry.
Yeah, well, very well put. Kind of picking up one of those threads that I really liked. We've spoken about it a little bit, but AI and negotiating deals or negotiating pricing, is that something you're open to allowing AI to do in the future? And at what point would you allow it to do that? Like, what about the tech would then say, okay, Jess, this is you internally, this is something that I would feel comfortable allowing AI to negotiate my deals for X, Y, Z reasons. The tech can do this, that, or will you never feel comfortable with that?
I think it depends on what you're selling. In high volume, low complexity, why not? If the PLG, if product-led growth can hold it, and your product is needed, understood, and can be purchased without a human involved, I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? This is a dream for every company to have some product line that can do this. But enterprise, I don't think we'll ever get there. I think we'll come to a point in the sales process, like security reviews and vendor applications and all of this stuff that's still clogging up the enterprise sales pipeline today. I think a lot of that will start to work out in the future. We already see things like one NDA coming out where you just, tons of companies have agreed that this NDA works for them, right? Like, and objectively, we're no longer going to be stuck in that process. So I think we'll begin to see solutions insert themselves where pain points are high, where people get stuck in legal and procurement and things like this. But I think enterprise sales for high touch, high usage products, I don't think we'll ever, let me not say never, but I think it'll be a long time before we get there, because I think it'll be when we stop as humans using the tool from a high touch perspective, then we can have somebody else negotiate for it. So There's a balance there, but I think you always have to ask yourself, what are you selling? Because some of them should probably be there today. And you think about how many things we buy without negotiating. I think the business world should probably go that direction to some degree. There's no reason to negotiate for 3 months on anything less than 10,000, right? It's just a waste of human capital at this point.
Yep, that's right. And also, sorry, my cat just had to join the webinar. If anyone saw her tail there. No, very well put it. I think, I mean, you've hit on so much with the one line or thought process that you had, Jess, when you were saying the first thing that I would want my AI guru or whatever, the AI, my chief of AI officer would tell me what not to automate. And specifically, we're not assessing AI necessarily, or we're not necessarily assessing whether it's AI or whatever you want to call it. Is it solving a problem? What is it automating that solves a problem? What's the pain point? What's the bottleneck? And I think when you put it in terms of that, instead of like, here's this dangling necklace or keychain, you need AI. That's when you get into problems, when you have that idea, because then your data's all over the place. You don't know what you're solving, and the conversation goes in circles. So it's not good for us as people who, at least in our company, who sells AI solutions, and it's not good for the client. So I think that's like really the bottom line is, what are your pain points? And again, getting back to the human level of just, you tell me what's going on. I say it a million times to everyone ad nauseum. Yes, I'm a doctor, and in medicine, you listen to your patient, because the patient actually 9 times out of 10 is going to tell you the diagnosis without knowing the terminology. That's why I went to medical school and I did residency. But the customer is going to tell you what they need, so just listen to them.
I think it's about mapping the workflow, right? Like, I mean, it's where sales or revenue ops and chief AI officer merge into one, is like, you need to start by mapping what is your revenue workflow and where do you have problems. Don't try to automate or solve for something that you're performing really well in. Don't break what's not broken. Like, don't try to fix something. And you can look at things from 2 perspectives, right? It's the efficiency side. Are we efficiently doing this, or is it effective? And if you aren't effective, then you need to probably fix it. If you're not doing it efficiently, it's a consideration, but I wouldn't run to breaking the process. I would look for more efficient ways to do the same thing that you're doing today, because you're still effective, right? So if you balance that efficiency and effectiveness, then you're in that middle road of like, okay, we're doing really great in this particular unit. But I think it's about mapping with your revenue operations team. And for me, like, my revenue operations team is playing this. Where are we automating? What are we doing? And why are we doing it? Right? Like, what problem are we solving? So I think this is a good place, especially for the smaller companies out there. Start with revenue operations. Start there and understand from your workflow, where do you have room for improvement? And don't try to over-engineer something that doesn't need to be over-engineered. Sometimes the answer is pretty simple.
Yeah, I guess keep it simple, stupid, or whatever that is generally the right approach. No, that's so well said. Couldn't put a nicer bow on that generally. So let's say you, chief AI officer, CEO, whatever the process is, comes up with a pain point that you need solved. Let's just use AI because that's what we're talking about here. But how do you get other stakeholders involved in something you as the CRO truly believe in? Maybe the CEO is a little bit on the ledge about it. Maybe your CFO is like, it's not worth the cost, or the CFO is saying it's not worth the cost. That's their job. Generally speaking, reining cost. How do you get these stakeholders to the table to, I guess, see it your way, or at least to explain from a revenue perspective why this tool, AI tool, is right for your organization?
Yeah. I think the first thing is an overarching theme. We need to be outcome obsessed, not tool obsessed. Like, we can't just go, because I think 2021, 2022, every company in the world, money was cheap, money was easy. They just went out and overbought systems. And we're seeing that plague in the market today. They just bought a lot of systems. Some of these systems did nothing. Some of these systems did a lot. And we saw a lot of boom in the tech space during these years, especially when we all went remote during COVID and some of these other kind of market indicators. But I think as a revenue leader, it's important to, like, we're already burdened in some way, I use that word lightly, by tools. So we need to be outcome obsessed. What are we trying to solve? What problem am I trying to fix? And what is the business outcome of it? right? Like, and I'm not just talking about, okay, well, the salesperson can go from making 75 calls to 100 calls with a dialer. Okay, this is an efficiency thing. Like, should we invest? Should we not invest? Is it worth it? What's our revenue from those extra calls every day? So I think in most of CROs, I like see default to this is, how can we get the ROI back? It's like speed to lead, right? How can we get our first dollar back from this system? And then it's all about attribution measurement. If you're buying a tool, you should be able to attribute what it's doing for your sales cycle, attribute what it's doing in order to make you more successful in your go-to-market process. So if you can connect what you're doing to a business outcome, attribute the effects of what it does throughout the process to the business outcome, then you got it. And not to say you're always going to get it, but you have to test those two things against each other. And if it's not working, cut. Like, don't just renew for, like, I hear so many people talking about like low adoption rate products, and they just renew because 2 of their reps just complain about not having it once they cut it. And it's like, okay, but did you map it to a business outcome? Did you measure its attribution to that business outcome in the end? And then you would have a very clear answer. Does it provide return on investment or not? And you can take some chances. I think you should take some chances in our role. Like, if you're not taking chances, you're probably not making goals, but take some chances, run out on the risk, make sure you understand what problem you're trying to solve, and then measure against it.
So am I hearing you correct? And this, I've certainly heard from other people, but I think it's worth underscoring. When you're making a decision on whether to bring on, let's just say, a new AI tool or an AI agent to come on board that you really believe in, you already have a sense in your head ahead of time how you're going to measure that ROI and what you would like the ROI to be with that tool, correct? You don't just jump in and say, well, let's see how it goes? Or is there a little bit of both still? Is there still that leap of faith that always needs to happen, even if you have the best data in the world?
I think there's humanity left in everything. And most really good revenue leaders have a good gut. That's like, because we've been projecting things we couldn't know for a long time, right? Like, the minute you go into sales leadership, and Devin can attest, the first thing that your CEO is going to ask you is, what's our number next quarter? I sat in a Q2 board meeting at the company's second real quarter last week, that they asked me, well, what's your projection for next quarter? And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, and you just get good. You get good at making projections, so you have that good gut, right? So I think that there's a balance. Sometimes you're going to take a jump and you're going to jump into something that may not work. You still have to have a hunch around what the outcome should be. But I think for the most part, because we're such a measurable function, we already have a general idea for where in the conversion process we can flip the script, right? If you have a pipeline to closed won conversion rate less than 30%, you need to do something there. Just industry standard in the SMB world, right? So you go there and you focus on that conversion rate. So I think you generally walk in, if you're problem solving first, you walk in with some expected outcome on the backside. And then I think where a lot of companies struggle is the attribution, because it's very hard to attribute what made it succeed. And the answer is often not just one tool, right? It's the collection of the process, or the collection of the people plus the process that make it work. And those need to be in consideration of the balance as well. It's like, if we compare it to something very simple that's not AI, it's like, how are you going to meet your goal? Well, you need salespeople. That's the first thing you think about, is how many people do I need to make the goal? And we should think about tools in the same way. I have a goal. I generally think I have enough people for the capacity and the function of what we're doing. But do I have enough bandwidth inside of the technicalities of what I'm doing to push across the line? So I think because we're measurable, to sum it all up, because we're a measurable function, we can go in a little bit smarter than a lot of other functions in companies with what exactly we're trying to change and what the business outcome should be.
Yeah, revenue, I think you really hit on the kind of duality of revenue side. Like, one, it's very easy to prove ROI, but the other is, we all know that just the numbers itself doesn't fully tell the picture. It depends also on your time frame, how you're collecting the data. But we all know at the end of the day, our jobs are tied to how much money the company's making. That's just the name of the game. That's the title. So, there is just that one goal, and it doesn't matter if you're not achieving it. You could be the greatest person in the world. You could have the best relationships. It kind of is what it is. And this is the same with sales, customer success. If you have certain KPIs. But anyway, it's one of those jobs. It either works or it doesn't. And the proof's just in the pudding of ACD.
100%. 100%.
Couple more questions here, and then let's open it up to some Q&A. I haven't had a good look at the chat, so maybe there's some good questions there, but we'll just leave it at this one last question, then we'll do the Q&A from here. Future for you, what would you say, like, okay, now the chief AI officer can grant you any 1, 3, 5 wishes. You answer it however you want. What would you love for the future for a CRO from an AI perspective, or an automation tool, whatever you want to call it, that would make a significant difference for you, but it's also one that you think is doable at the same time?
I don't know that it's doable, but I'm going to put my wish out there. Maybe there's somebody smart enough on this call to sort that out. We have a data problem, and we are very fragmented across our company. And we see it when we're trying to hook relationships into companies' go-to-market strategies. CRMs need to reinvent themselves somehow, some way. I have never been at a company where somebody walked in and said, man, this CRM is amazing. The data is great. It's our one source of truth for everything. There's no flaws there. And when you're dealing in a voluminous world, that can be tragic at minimum. And when you're dealing in a high value world, it's really important from a data perspective. I think we have a long way to go in how CROs are engaged with their data. It's a very hard thing to do. I don't do it well. I don't know many that do it well. It's the conjunction of the CFO function matched with revenue operations, matched with marketing operations, matched with the chief revenue officer. And all those data sources have to spin and have a really amazing output. So I think in the grand scheme of things, I would love to see CROs better armed with better data that comes from a multi-source, like authentication of some sort, right? Email and calendar being where your relationships live within your company, and the communications and the sentiments of those interactions. The CRM mostly where you have identification about accounts, the account within your company or the accounts that you do business with. And then public sources of people, understanding who and where people come into mix, mixed with the financial operations, mixed with the marketing operations, and really just summarizing it in a way that CROs can act better, like with more information, with more data. And I don't think we're there yet. I haven't seen a tool that can help us fix this data issue that we have. And it comes from, and I see it building something new today. You say, I'll never do that again, right? It's like, and you end up doing that thing again because it worked, and it's not clean. It's not what we feel is the best way to do it, but it works. So I'd love to see revenue operators and chief revenue, positions better armed with data, more accurate data from multi-source contribution.
Yeah, and that's such a struggle point for so many people. I would love to sit here. I could sit here and with confidence say we have significantly helped our clients with their data using things like N8N, just like Zach said in the chat, Supabase, Pinecone to a certain extent. Those are just vectorized databases. But it's very customized. It definitely requires a lot of manual labor at the start end for them to tell us about their workflows, for us to figure that out. And it clearly, it requires time. I wish we could say it, and this is kind of where I was bringing it up to, like, we could do it for our clients. And the question is, well, why is our data so disparate internally? It's because we all fall into the same stuff. Now we're currently working on that. And actually, Sibba, who's on the call, is changing all of that for us. And I'm going to have this beautiful CRO dashboard to make all sense of all this stuff. But with that said, I understand where everyone's coming from. We do know the solutions and we know that we can execute it. It's just funny that internally it's just like, well, we could just put a Band-Aid on that for now and let's move on helping our clients. And before you know it, your data's kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Devin, you raised your hand. Do you have anything?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think also when you have more of like an open dialogue or an open proof of what the product actually does, we might get closer in that way because you still have the problem of what did the salespeople sell versus does the product actually do? That's still a gap in the enterprise world that I think some companies solve it through POCs and that just extends sales processes, in my opinion. So if you want to stay away from that, a lot of the world that we're being faced with today is how can you bring value all the way to the beginning? And how can you give value for free with proof before purchase while not extending the sales cycle? So it's like this seesaw of does the product do what it says? And I think we'll go through kind of the next tidal wave is products must do at a minimum of what they say and then have extra value, right? Because that verification will have to come far before we buy tools without testing and negotiated by outsourced, hands. So I think that's kind of the teeter totter there. Yeah. I think it's a balance, and there's so many places where, and I see Zach actually just commented on it. There's so many places where we can't even imagine going back to a human doing it, right? Like enriching databases as an example. Like there are just some infallible spots today where humans cannot do it better, more efficient, more effective, no way, move on. And I think it'll be funny to watch as that pool becomes bigger, that infallible, we just accept 70%, or we waterfall 70% together and we get to 85%, you know, like this is the idea. And I don't think the pool is as big as it should be today on where AI can really be put in to solve these big problems. And this is why I think a lot of the conversation in the go-to-market side goes back to humanity and humans first, and how do we just supplement or make more efficient our people. But I think that bucket's going to continue to get bigger, and there'll be places, like you said, inside of the sales process, maybe like procurement and security, and maybe to some degree negotiation, right? Where you just get to that point. And I'm super excited to see that come forward. And I think it'll happen pretty quick. Some of those things will happen very quick. Like by the end of the year, we'll start to see many of those things take place. And it'll be interesting to see. But I think it's interesting on an AI-based podcast to talk about all the things we still do human first, but it's kind of the nature of the go-to-market role right now. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the things you said is super important. One of the things that I hire people on is what I call the figure it out factor. Can they figure it out? Like, do they need to ask me 500 questions, or can they figure it out? And right now that feels like a gap to me, is that I'm still left, as you said, with extracting the value from a lot of these systems and figuring out how does it solve an outcome obsessed operation. How does it fix it? Am I fixing the efficiency, or am I fixing the efficacy of what we're doing? Like, what is it? And I think that's where we'll see things continue to improve, is the, like, how can we build a system that has a high figure it out factor? And that's a question not for me, certainly on the wrong channel here, but I think this is when you look at what you hire people for, and then when you look at what you use AI for, they're very different. These maps are very different. The trait tables are very different today. So when those two things start to converge, like they did with enrichments, by the way, as a very good example of a place that is almost completely automated today, that's when we'll start to see these LLMs take over and the ability to use agents in place of humans.
There was one from Critique where he said, when it was mentioned earlier not to fix something that isn't broken, let's say something is broken beyond adding usual enhancements, and then we are working on an AI-based solution. At what point does AI enrichment stop adding value and start creating complexity? It's an interesting question. Fairly broad. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jess?
Again, it's again pretty back to the question: what's the outcome that we're searching for, and how far off are we? And the question, if I've understood it correctly, there is an overcomplication. There is too much noise you can add to the system. And this is why I think you overlap that with the true mapping of the sales production organization. There's industry standards for everything now. Everything out there. We're not guessing anymore. What is a good conversion rate for a SaaS into an SMB with an ACV of 20K? We know. You can be told, right? And if you don't have that, then what's wrong? Is it the product? Is it the sales process? Is it you haven't figured out your ICP? Like, there's all of these places, and then you have to go back and start saying, okay, where's my noise? How do I figure it out? And then I think you can get down to where systems can add value. But again, I think it has to be with we're not evaluating AI. We are evaluating a problem we are trying to solve and deciding whether to fix it with a human, as Devin said, or with a computer. And this is the complexity. And sometimes it will be too much noise. And that's when you revert back and you make a different decision. And I see this a lot in, like, today, as an example, in today's world with signals. Okay, XYZ company visited your website. I'm sorry, this is a garbage piece of data. What the heck are you going to do with a 5,000 person company visiting your website? It doesn't mean anything. And most of the time it's not even accurate, because we're all working from home, and this is done on, like, technology that doesn't exactly map it back to the company. So this type of stuff is just noise. And how do you get away from it? You chase different signals. You chase different adaptions to whatever trigger it is that your customer is putting out into the world that lets you know that they're ready. And then I'll leave it at that, because I think that's where the tightrope is. Yeah. Because I think that point is all of the places where we had automation to start with, like in the cold email sequences, don't work anymore. So if you're outcome obsessed, you're not trying to re-automate outbound automated sequences because you know that it doesn't work. Less than 1% efficacy on this one. Whereas if you give me better insights into how my calls are going, what is going well, what isn't going well, to somebody who I legitimately don't have time to watch all the calls that happen at my company. We're a pretty small company and I still don't have the time. So if you could give me insights from that, you're saving time and you're leading me to where revenue actually might lie. So, and we see it in our business too, Devin, by the way. We see that, and we do a lot of work around champions and relationships and how to identify who you know as an organization. And we see that companies miss between 20 and 40% of the people that they work with in their own CRMs. They don't exist. So how can you do anything automated with these relationships if you don't know who they are? And exactly like what you're saying, the information exists already. We don't do anything magic. There's no magic trick to, you know, dumping 5,000 new relationships on top of you. It's not what we do. We just help you identify who your relationships are. So it's in that same complex that you said, the information's already in the company. How do we operationalize? And I think I said this earlier, right? Like we're looking at ways for AI to work as your operating layer with the human taking the decision in the loop, right? Human in the command loop, as I mentioned before. Like this is where, in my opinion, the sweet spot is today. How do I take all this information that exists and all the different departments that I said before, CFO, marketing ops, revenue ops, CRO, all of those things, and give the CRO, who's got a good gut most of the time anyway with how to make money happen, if they're worth their salt anyway, this is when you put them in the activation seat, is letting them use their own data. But again, it's why I said it's one of the biggest problems is I think companies are sitting on treasure troves of data with no idea how to read it or what to do with it. Every company is like, it's like,
For sure.
yeah, for anybody to say they're not is a bit foolish. So
Yeah. Well, Devin, unless you have anything quick, we're winding down, and you know, Jess has a lot of stuff going on. Everyone does, so maybe now's a time to wrap it up. We have community VIP office hours directly after this for those who are signed up. So you get some time with Devin for that hour. Plus, I know he gives usually more time than that. And if you guys have any questions about that, LinkedIn me, community, DM, etc. Just not trying to put you on the spot to end this. Any last words? You could certainly say, no, I left it all on the table, all on the field today. But I want to make sure that you get the last word here.
I think it was a great open discussion. And Ross, just like how you and I met, I think we all have to kind of be together in the humanity side of this and figuring out how to adapt as quickly as we can to what is a very changing role right now. Like we sat in Ross and where we met and listened to, you know, a bunch of old timers talk about how it's been and how it might be. And then a couple random people sitting in this room who had a little bit different of an idea. And I think that's where really fun conversations happen. So I think just encourage continuing to network and build relationships with people, because that's where I tend to learn the most. So I'm super excited you had me on, and thanks for the invite. I appreciate it. And more lunches in our future.
Absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to taking you out to dinner. This was the bribe. I think for the sake of completion, everyone should know I bribed Jess. So it's just everyone knows. But with that said, it was a real honor and a pleasure to have you here. And definitely we should do more of these in the future. And we'll definitely try to get you back on in the future. So thanks so much for giving us the time. And everyone, I put Jess's LinkedIn in the chat. Or if you need to get in contact with her, certainly feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to make the introduction.
Thanks, guys. Nice to meet you.
Have a good weekend.
Take care.
See you, Jess.
Ciao.